this is Silver Phoenix 777, and you're watching Retro Gamer Verity Nook. Hey, Silver Phoenix 777 here. I'm actually doing a rather massive video that's going to be put into probably at least 2 parts, if not 3. I'm going to try to keep it to 2. The topic here actually is something that no one's done before. They do compare Digimon and Pokemon a lot, but they don't compare the 3 franchises that came out. Your Pokemon, your Digimon, and your Monster Rancher. Now all 3 obviously had anime, since I have them all. But they also all had games. So, and even card games. So all of them had qualities that were shared, but some of them were quite unique. And I actually decided to do this based on this last Pokemon game that came out, because Pokemon X and Y actually incorporates things from both Digimon and Monster Rancher. And you'll see what I'm talking about as soon as we go in depth on this. Now, I'm going to start out with the games, but we're not going to start with the regular games. We're going to start with card games. That's right. Not just the physical card games, though. I'm talking about the card games that were playable on various consoles or handhelds, as a lot of them did never make it there. And I will talk about some of the online play with Pokemon, since it doesn't really have any handheld games anymore. Alright, on to the games. Perhaps something I should hit on a little bit before I go into all the games here is the origins for all 3 of these. Most people know the origin for Pokemon is Satoshi Tajiri loved collecting insects and decided that he would try to make a game similar to that, though creating monsters to go along with it. It's just bugs are not exactly all that thrilling for most children. He saw that the Game Boys would be the perfect platform with it, and it would encourage them via the link cable to actually trade and share the things that they caught. Digimon, though, was not affiliated with Pokemon at all. Everybody kept calling it the Pokemon ripoff. That wasn't totally accurate. Actually, Digimon was more of a Tamagotchi ripoff, if it wasn't for the fact that it was the same company that created Tamagotchi that created Digimon. It was first conceived as a virtual pet, just like Tamagotchis, but it was conceived because of the fact that the Tamagotchis were more, I guess, girly. So they ended up changing it out so that the boys would want it, so they called it Digimon instead and created more dinosaur-like Digimon, something that boys would want to go after. And then you have the Monster Rancher or Monster Farm series. I don't know why they changed the name between countries, but they did. This series actually is inspired by the simulator Tamagotchi Digimon thing. But it also has some nuances that are identical to Barcode Battlers, which I had to go look up because I did not remember this. Apparently back in '91, they came out with Barcode Battlers console at, well, a decent price from what I could tell for the time period. It didn't really go over, but basically what they did is they supplied you with a number of cards, each containing a barcode. Now, when you start up the game, you swipe a card for the player that you want to play as, and then remaining cards would also do enemies or power-ups. You could also use barcodes from, like, laundry detergent and other things, and you could actually end up with different power-ups and characters from scanning barcodes from household items. Now, they did bring this back, Nintendo did, for the Nintendo's e-reader system, and they did have some of them out, like Legend of Zelda and Super Mario, that had the Barcode Battler type thing going on. But it was not something that was popular and really didn't go over outside of Japan. I don't know what it is, but things just succeed in Japan that don't succeed everywhere else. But Monster Rancher is more of a simulation type game to begin with, so it's a little bit different than your typical Digimon game. Now, all three of these games do have a lot in common, but they also have a lot of differences. And we're going to go through their card games first here. And I guess we'll start with Pokemon on that. I know card games are not exactly something everybody's really into, but Pokemon's card game seems to do pretty well. The trading card game for the Game Boy actually debuted in '98 in Japan and 2000 in North America. I don't know why it took them so long to get it over here, but what else is new? It's a simplistic design that they had in there. They had 3 starter decks, which basically was your Kanto starters, and there were over 200 cards in the game, which was actually pretty good for its time period. And it actually was operating by the same rules, and it had a sequel called Here Comes Team Rocket, which I would assume contained the Rocket Booster Pack at the time. I would think that the 200 cards that they were speaking of were the base set, the jungle, and probably the fossil set would be my guess. But I'm not positive of that because I did not play all the way through that game. They also had the online version that came out for the PC in March of 2011. Now they had another simulation version of that earlier. I couldn't find documentation for it, but I know there was an earlier one that was a PC game that they attempted to do, and it didn't quite go over, so they revamped it and tried it later. And I know this because I had the demo disc at one point. I think it came with a game. It may not have. It may come with a movie, for all I know. But I remember the demo disc at some point. Basically, the PC version has 4 different play modes. I'm assuming one of them was online. And they also had a DS version that came out back in 2011. They revamped the original doing that, and they also did a how to play in it so that you wouldn't get lost, apparently. Most people know how to play that card game. Then you have the Digimon Battle Card Arena. Now, this actually did have physical cards, just like Pokemon did, and it's actually a faster paced game than Pokemon, whereas Pokemon's all about your setup. Digimon, I mean, you can change who's winning within one round. It's not about setup, it's about who can get what monster out. And with Digimon, you don't need as many nuances to get your monsters to level up, and that's why you have a faster pace there. The PS1 game came out in the 2000s, early 2000s. Basically, it came out in 2000 Japan and 2001 in North America, and it was produced by Bandai. And they allowed for 30 card decks. They did skip some levels in there, but it wasn't anything major for the most part. Your levels that were missing were Fresh, In Training, and Mega, but the Megas did appear as ultimates in the game, which confused the crap out of a lot of people. But they were in there. The favorites were like War Greymon and Metal Garurumon. In that game, you build up DP or Digi points, or Digivolution points, I can't remember what they call them, to make your moves. Basically, if you want to Digivolve to the higher level, you have to have a certain number of DP points. If you want to attack, you have to have a certain number of DP points. So you can't just run an attack when you feel like it. You basically build those up by discarding cards from your hand into your graveyard. You start off with one of the partner Digimon from Season 2, which is either Vmon, Hawkmon, or Armadillomon. And you can get the others later on. They will give you a second partner. Not necessary, but they are handy at times. And basically, that one is just having you save the digital world while you're there. And I think the real world does play into it as well. They didn't say that much about it, though, so I don't really know too much on that. And you had the Monster Rancher card battle. Should just notice this thing does not. Alright, I thought that wasn't recording. Okay, we'll come back here. And the Monster Rancher card battle game actually also has physical cards. They were only released in Japan. I don't know what it is about Japan, but they don't always release everything over to the US or translate it. So I have the Japanese cards. It's just you can't read them. But the games did end up in English as a release. The games are created by Tecmo, which is now Tecmo Koei, I think is the pronunciation. They're the creators of Dynasty Warrior and some of the Ninja Gaiden games. So they're known for fighting games, but not really the simulation game that they created with this. The first game came out in 1999 for the Game Boy Color, and the second card game came out in 2000 for the PlayStation 1. Now, they give you a starter deck, and with the Game Boy Color version, it was a personality test. With the PS1 version, it was an import from a CD, which is something that you will see reoccurring in this game system. There was also a code system involved. It was very limited. I believe it would give you certain cards that you couldn't get normally. I never actually used that. I own both games and have played both. Well, I haven't finished the one, but I have not used that system because it doesn't seem to be something of all that much use at this point. You use guts to make your moves in this one. It's just like the DP points from Digimon. You have to discard cards to get guts, and certain attacks take more guts than others to run. In this one, you have a 50 card deck plus the 3 monsters that you constantly have in your deck. Now, the monsters do not count against that 50 card limit. The 50 cards are basically your move cards, and once you have enough guts, you can use one of those moves. Now, some of them are defensive, some of them are offensive, and there's certain ones that don't use any guts at all, but those are usually low-level attacks or defensive moves. The Game Boy Color version doesn't really have much of a story that I can tell. I know you somehow end up in the middle of the world there, and you're not from that world, but they don't have that much of a storyline that I can tell right now. Holly is in there. She will kick your ass, by the way. She is incredibly good in that game, and I have yet to even beat her once. The PS1 version did have more of a story. You have to save Colt because she was an idiot as usual and got herself stuck in some alternate area. So you actually had to run around, collect cards, and open a gateway to get to her. Each of the series actually have more than just the card games, though. And Pokemon, being the most popular, is the most well known about all of its games. Red and Green came out in '96 in Japan, in February of '96, and Blue came out in October of '96 for Japan. Our Red and Blue didn't come out till '98, and then we got Yellow the year later, whereas Yellow came out in '98 for Japan. Followed by Gold, Silver, Crystal, Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Black and White 2, and X and Y. Now they had, of course, all these offshoots that weren't part of the main series. The main series being mostly an RPG-related game, where you're trying to catch them all or at least beat the crap out of the Elite Four. I have yet to ever catch every single Pokemon, because I don't waste my time doing that. I just get a good team together that I like. But you can play it how you like because of the way the RPG is set up, and each one has its own elements. But the offshoots are sometimes really good, and sometimes they don't do too well. You have Pokemon Pinball and Puzzle League that sort of have a following. Conquest is unique in its own way, though I am still somewhat confused by that game even being part of the Pokemon series. You had Stadium that came out, and everybody wanted to see their Pokemon in 3D before X and Y came out, so everybody bought that. The minigames in that were absolutely hilarious, though. Pokemon Ranger is always an interesting take. It's more flexible, and it's about being flexible in the game, since you don't have your own Pokemon. You have to tame wild ones and hope they have what you want them to have. Rumble is always a nice diversion, since it's an easy to play, run through, and beat the crap out of the Pokemon game. And then you have the complexity of Mystery Dungeon, where you're a person turned into a Pokemon. I always found the Mystery Dungeon series to be quite interesting. Snap, though not as critically acclaimed, was a really good game as far as I was concerned. You could always find something new in that game because you never knew what you were going to pick up on camera. And then you had the Poke Park and Hey You Pikachu, which nobody hated. It really liked. Everybody hated it. Nobody liked it. And then you also had Stadium Coliseum, which followed Stadium, but it kind of did its own thing. And for something not produced by Game Freak, it actually did really well. They also came out with a Poke Ranch that I don't think anybody really used. You could hold up to 8 Pokemon from Gen 4 in there and take pictures and interact with them in the game. And I don't know why they even bothered. The Poke Park has a skills game in it, but I've never heard of anybody using that. And there was also the Pokeathlon, which seems to be quite an interesting take on using your Pokemon in a competition type thing. And then you have the Pokewalker that came out alongside Heart Gold and Soul Silver in 2009 in Japan and 2010 in North America. Now this is a virtual pet game. We're taking off a note here from Digimon, and you can get items on other Pokemon and interact with other players with that. And it basically sits on your hip, and the more you walk, the further your Pokemon walks in this Pokewalker and gains XP for it. Digimon did this first, so all you people that keep saying that Pokemon ripped off Digimon may have gotten some ideas from Pokemon, especially with the anime. But I'll tell you right now, Pokemon did the same thing. They took ideas from Digimon as well, as proven by the Pokewalker. Speaking of Digimon, we all know that they started off in '97 as a virtual pet, which is a spin-off of Tamagotchi. But then in '99, they put out their first game. Now, their game was not portable, which I think was part of their downfall. They started with the PS1 and ended up with PS2 games as well. The Digimon World series, 1 through 4. World 1 anyway, coming out in '99 in Japan, and 2000 in North America. Now, this game, basically, it had the multi-tiered evolutions that later came about in Pokemon, way before Pokemon thought of it. Based on how you raised your monster, how you treated them, what you had them do as a training type thing, would determine what evolutionary tree you would evolve to. Now, Pokemon now does that, but Digimon had it first. They also had the Data Squad series, which was an offshoot of that, which did pretty well, actually. It followed the actual Data Squad anime, so it tied in with that. It was the first game they had that tied in with the anime at all. Whereas the anime, you did actually learn things from the anime that tied into Digimon World, but it wasn't something that was concrete. There were things that were different between the two. You also have Rumble Arena, which actually their version of Rumble Arena came out first, so Pokemon did steal that name. But it was basically Digimon fighting each other, and you could evolve up to their final form usually at some point during the game and fight back and forth. They actually had 2 of those games. And then they had a racing game, which was just hilarious and stupid at the same time. Thing is that Digimon had more games than most people thought. In fact, I think they might actually have more games than Pokemon has put out in some ways. At least in variety. You have the DS games that are Dawn and Dusk, Championship, Lost Evolution, Redigitize, Battle Spirit 1 and 2. Now, I haven't played any of those because I honestly didn't have a DS for the longest time. I do now, as I have finally gotten enough money together to get one. Yeah, I was way behind on that. But they also had PC games as well. Only theirs was a massive multiplayer online game called Battle Online. Now, this actually was created in Korea. Yeah, I know, right? Weird. In 2002, and it did debut in North America in 2010. It was a little strange there, excuse me. you play as a tamer, which, if you didn't know, which was from season 3 on Digimon. They called them tamers at that point. You get to choose your appearance based on that, and then you get to choose your partner. You can capture a Digimon in this game. Yes, they did pull a little bit from Pokemon, as you weren't really originally capturing anything. You get 3 tries to do that, and it's a turn-based battle system in that particular one. Now, later on, they created a sequel called Digimon Masters that debuted in October of 2011. And that one, you can get mercenary Digimon from Digitama or Digimon eggs that are dropped by enemies. It is a real-time battle system instead of a turn-based, and it utilizes the crests that you heard about in Season 1's anime. Now, the crests, there's actually 10 of them. They didn't mention that many in the anime, but each chooses your evolutionary tree, so they simplified that, and it also has a different digimental ability, depending on what that is. Unfortunately, this game closed in April 2013 due to contract and server issues. They also had 2 games for the Wonder Swan, which nobody wonders about because it died, but the first one was just called Adventure, Anode, Cathode, Tamer. Why the heck we named it Anode and Cathode, which is basically positive and negative, by the way, if you guys don't know terminology for electricity. I don't know, and calling it Adventure, seriously? But they did it again! Adventure 02! Tag Tamers was the second game for the Wonder Swan. It's like, really, people? Come on. Be a little bit more creative. And they did. There was one for Sega Saturn. It was called Digital Monster version 5, Digitamers. And recently they created a PSP version called Digimon Adventure. It basically retells Season 1 and you're kind of playing through it. It came out in January of 2013. Which I may or may not be getting because I actually have a PSP now. And on to Monster Rancher. Now, Monster Rancher, like I said before, actually is completely different than the others in the way it plays. It actually has, it's a simulation game that's almost simulated animal breeding, sort of. And it does have similarities to other virtual pet games, like the Digimon games. Basically, part of that ties into what you're doing in all the rest of these games. And it does actually have a cult following, even though it is one of the games that people don't mention a lot. And that cult following is quite loyal, actually. And part of it is because of the fact that it does have that unique unlocking aspect. There's actually 272 monsters known in the game, and that includes glitch-type monsters. I'll list off the breeds here for you, because you're probably not going to know anything about this type of game. And I'm not going to even attempt that with Pokemon or Digimon, because of the fact that they have hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. But they have main breed types, and those are as follows: Abyss, Fecalon, Baku, Centaur, Color Pandora, Dragon, Ducken, Durahan, Falco, Galley, Golem, Hare, Hangar, Joker, Lesinone, Mew, Mochi, Monal, Naga, Agwe, Pancho, Phoenix, Hero, Pixie, Plant, Suezo, Tiger, Xenon, and Zan. Now, you can have any combination between those in the game. And that's how they're getting extras. And there's also some that you can get specifically from discs that, like, I think Resident Evil gave you a specific character out of the Resident Evil. I believe it was Resident Evil that did that. Well, one of the games, one of the discs did give you a specific character. You can only get them from unlocking it from those discs. Now, that came from a later one. The original Monster Rancher game for the PlayStation Came out in 97 in Japan and 97 in North America, believe it or not. And basically, you unlock a monster, and it will be sometimes annoying because you will get a monster that you are not allowed to have because it's too high level for you. Your breeder level determines what monster you're allowed to have when, and you will grow in breeder level as you win more championships. And it's really annoying when you find a powerful monster that you cannot have, and it won't let you have it until you are up to a certain level. But it won't even tell you what level you need to be at, so that's the only annoying part of that. And you're basically raising that monster. It's more about raising it than it is about fighting. You want that monster to be loyal to you, because the more loyalty, the better their hit percentage, the more likely they'll dodge. You also want that monster to be quite healthy. They can get sick. They can get lost. I'm not kidding. They can. They will eventually hit a maximum on their abilities, but you can try to even it out. And before it dies of old age, which they do have an age restriction at first, it's like 3 years, but I've gotten up to 7 years on a couple of the games. It is determined by your ranch, how you're raising them, and your breeder level. And you can get them to go up in level faster if you combine them, which I'll go into in a minute. They can also be forced to be retired in certain games rather than die. The original game, though, they actually died. And your loyalty also determines whether you get critical hits as well. Monsters that are disloyal will often refuse commands or not fight at all when you're actually fighting in a battle. And retired monsters who are put in the cryostasis can be combined with younger monsters or even another monster to create more powerful monsters. Monster Rancher 2 came out 2 years later, and around that time you also had Hopabout come out. Now Hopabout was a weird platform racing game, which I have yet to check out. It had power-ups in it, and it also had a level creator, which was quite interesting. Other games include the Game Boy Color Monster Rancher Explorer, which was a puzzle game. The friendly monsters fend off enemies for you and act as power-ups in that game. It was quite a unique game, but it's kind of odd too. It's kind of an offshoot because of the fact that they have an exploration part in the Monster Rancher game series where you can go and explore, and that's how your monster can get lost. I had mine get lost for like 2 months and finally come back. But they actually made a full-on game out of it, which was kind of weird. It didn't really go over. The PlayStation 2 got its first Monster Rancher game in the form of Monster Rancher 3 in 2001. And then they had Monster Rancher 4 in 2002, which had new elements in it. Not only did you have more monsters, but you also had an RPG-like storyline, which is something that they didn't have before. It was more about raising the monster than anything else. And this one not only focused on the raising the monster and the exploration part more, but it also had an RPG storyline that you were to follow. Evo came out in 2005 for the PS2. It was the last one that come out to my knowledge on PlayStation. I have not played it, but it's centered around a circus-like theme, which is kind of weird to me, but I'm not gonna diss it just because it's different. The Game Boy Advance also got some games. Game Boy Monster Rancher Advanced 1 came out in 01, and number 2 came out in 02. Creative guys. And they were smaller and less flexible in some cases, and they were determining what monster you got based on key phrases or letters that you input into the game. The DS also saw Monster Rancher. You had Monster Farm DS in 08, which was for Japan only, and then they had Monster Rancher DS came out in 2010, and that used inputted text and picture drawings in order to determine monsters. The PC also got a Monster Farm online game, which was an MMO, back in 2008 in Japan. This is no longer available. It was taken down, I believe, in 2009 and replaced with Monster Farm Lagoon in 2009. There was no localization of that one either, and it was taken down in 2013 for a server upgrade and never put back up. Supposedly, they still were going to put it back up, but I have yet to see anything out of them. And Monster Rancher is the only one of these that got an Android or iDevice release called My Monster Rancher. Suppose it was shutting down April 29th of this year. It is still up if you guys want to go and check it out. Alright guys, time to talk about the crossovers between these games. For virtual pets, we obviously know that. Digimon and Pokemon are the cross on that one. Though I can kind of include Monster Rancher in that one because it was based off of that. It was just not on a mobile device. And the virtual pets I'm talking about are like the Tamagotchi type thing, where you had the Pokewalker and you had the Digivice that you took with you and could interact with others. Whereas Monster Rancher did not get one of those ports. Controlling stats. Now, Pokemon does this a lot now, but way back in the first games, it didn't. And, I mean, your IVs were so hard to figure out. EVs nowadays, with the EV training, is a lot easier, and Pokemon X and Y really created a really nice way of controlling that and seeing what was going on. Now, Digimon had the ability to do that as well with your training regiment, depending on certain tasks that you did. Monster Rancher has always had this ability, and it was their foundation as a pet simulation game or monster breeding simulation game when they first started. A Rumble! Pokemon and Digimon are the two that use a Rumble, which is just a fighting game. And I don't think that they'll ever get one out for Monster Rancher, even though, ironically enough, it's great. Tech Mom creates fighting games all the time. I think they could do a wonderful job with it, but I've never seen them do it. Turn-based. Pokemon and Digimon are both turn-based games that you assign attacks, and you have to wait for your attack to go off, and you can also use defense abilities. This is true in all of the Digimon games, except for the one that actually used a real-time play. And Pokemon has never used real-time that I know of in any of its games. Real-time, Digimon and Monster Rancher. Now, Monster Rancher, you can dodge and do all kinds of stuff. It is real-time battle. It's whoever can get their attacks off first. Digimon also did this in the one online game that they had. RPG elements. Pokemon, Digimon, and Monster Rancher all have this. Monster Rancher from Monster Rancher 4 and a couple of other things from the card game series and offshoots also gave Monster Rancher RPG elements. Pokemon's always been an RPG, and Digimon has always been one too, aside from the virtual pet side. As soon as it came out on PlayStation, it's been an RPG. Bonding. Pokemon recently, well, actually not recently. I'll take that back. Since Pokemon Yellow came out with the bonding issue. And Digimon took that into effect in several other games as well. It was not in their original one. Monster Rancher has always had that as part of their thing. That's that loyalty system I was talking about. They refer to it as bonding later, but it is loyalty, and that determines your attacks. And Pokemon has really stepped that up with their Pokemon Amazing, because that really, really brought into the forefront the fact that you could actually get your monster to survive an attack they wouldn't normally, or dodge an attack that they normally wouldn't be able to. Or power them up when you don't want them to so they can knock something out. But Monster Rancher definitely had an influence on that one, I think, because they probably saw some of these others. Mega Evolutions. I think we knew this was going to be on here, guys. Pokemon and Digimon both have Mega Evolutions. Now, in some ways, yes, Pokemon kind of ripped Digimon off, but they are different in, yes, they may be temporary, but they are dependent on your bond with your Pokemon. Digimon's anime brought that up, but that is not true in the games. Their Mega Evolutions have nothing to do with that. Well, at least when they're present in games. They're not always present. Sometimes they're just referred to as Ultimates instead of Megas. And the final thing that's a crossover is the combining of monsters. Now, they have not really done this in Pokemon. I know they mentioned it with Slowpoke becoming Slowbro with Shellder there, but you don't lose a Shellder in your party just because you have a Slowpoke and you gained a Slowbro. That's not how it works in the game. So it's not really combining monsters. With Digimon, you can do DNA Digivolutions. That is something that they have brought out in some of the games. It's a little bit harder to bump into, but it has been brought out. Digimon 3 primarily dealt with that. And then you have Monster Rancher always being able to combine monsters. That's how they were getting different subbreeds. So, in conclusion, guys, these games may be quite similar, and they have various reasons why each one of them failed or succeeded. Pokemon took off because it was on a portable device. Digimon, to be honest, was not user-friendly. And Monster Rancher has always been a lesser-known game, so they didn't really have that much going for them as far as advertising went. But they all seem to feed off one another at some point in some way. And I think all of them are aware of each other in this industry, whether they'll say whether they took inspiration or not from each other. Each started out very differently, but it still retains its roots. And each has something to enjoy about it if people would stop dissing one or the other because it was considered a ripoff of something else. And the original may not always be better. It just means it's the first. So Pokemon, yeah, it was the first one to get notoriety, but in reality, it didn't really end up being the first of its kind. It just came out slightly ahead of the others. But all of them were in development together for the most part. And that concludes my game section on this, guys. I will be back shortly, hopefully. I know this took forever for me to get out. With the anime version of this, which is going to take me a lot more research and probably a lot more time. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that. Feel free to let me know if I missed anything in the comments, though I won't be updating the video probably anytime soon, since YouTube doesn't let you just update videos. Come on, YouTube, you've already screwed everything up with Google Plus anyway. Could you add an update feature? Apparently not. Anyway, I'm gonna plug some videos in here for you. First one's gonna be the first retro gaming Verity Nook I did on Primal Rage, and second video, I guess, will be on the unboxing for the Joe figurine I recently got from Burst Angel. Until next time, guys, keep on gaming.